Hello, everybody. I'm Rick DiClemente, and this is Astrology Unplugged. This is episode 350. So I'm glad to have you with us, and we'd like to welcome Willem and Kane, who are with us fresh tonight from the Netherlands, where it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and we're gonna watch you drink your tea and your coffee. And there's the other Rick. Rick is known as Rick C, and I'm known as Rick D, and we contribute a lot, both of us. Rick, did you notice that it's all working? I don't know what the heck's going on. Anyhow, we're going to get into it. I was really studying tonight um, between whether to talk about Pluto. I've been doing an awful lot of talking about Eris, and I'm glad. Do I want to do something lighthearted? Um, and the consensus of the voices that I'm hearing wanted me to review how well are we doing with our Pluto transit. And it's such a big deal that I thought it would not hurt us to re-explain to you what a Pluto return is, show you how significant it is, show you how it's really impacting the world, and talk a little bit about it. So to show you a chart. Okay, you can see here in the United States chart. In the United States chart, this is one of many. This is pretty close to the one that's mostly used. Pluto was at 27 degrees of Capricorn. It was at 27 degrees of Capricorn in 1776. Well, it's taken all that time for Pluto to slowly go through its trip, its 240-year trip all around the circle. And when it got to certain points, certain things happened. And Pluto in the past 2, 3 years has returned. Pluto is back right there where it started from. And when it's this close, you don't worry about little details. It's been there since.
Even if you're not on that web page, you're still on camera.
Okay, let's see what that means.
I think someone was talking to somebody else about something else.
Yeah, I think so. So you can see in the American chart, Pluto is now right here. And Pluto has been in this area for a couple of years. It's going to stay in this area for a couple of years. And Pluto is not one of those planets that has to be exactly right there. It's so massive of a planet in terms of its meaning and its effect that we're in the middle of a major Pluto age. Now, you'll find in the United States chart, it was found in the second house opposite Mercury, which gives us a rather intense mentality as Americans, somewhat argumentative, very good for intense research, very good for intense psychological depth research. So I'm not going to talk much about the birth chart. I'm going to talk more about the Pluto return. So as we waited for all these years, we waited for Pluto to finally come back around because we knew for many years it would be in February 2022. Now it's going to go back and forth some, and it's really not going to make much difference how close it is, etc. What is going to matter is if Pluto gets close to that Pluto, gets close nearby, and something else hits it. Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, something else piles on, just like in a rugby match. When Pluto's sitting there in close proximity to the natal Pluto and something else hits it, that's when the big stuff happens. Okay. So what are we talking about? Pluto, let's talk about the basics of it. Now, I've got many, many videos on YouTube on this subject. Pluto is the planet that rules the masses. It rules our passions. It rules our sense of betrayal, our sense of dedication, our sense of mission statement. So Pluto, you've probably seen movie stars that are quite Plutonian, and you probably know some people in your life that are Plutonian. And since Pluto rules Scorpio, you probably have met some Scorpios in your life, and you wonder where they get that intensity from. It comes from a very strong inner sense of being dedicated, courageous, strong, tough. It has a very negative side, which can be very wicked, um, greedy, dangerous, jealous, hateful. That's a negative side. And it certainly has a very positive side, which is very loving, very giving, and very strong. And what really matters, and this is the answer, what really matters between a successful Scorpio and an unsuccessful Scorpio is how much they hate themselves, if at all. If they do, then get out. Don't associate with them. Get away from them because they're going to try to hurt you. If they don't hate themselves, the likelihood is very strong that they're very good people and they'll stand in support of you. So, when we're looking at Pluto in a nation's chart, and remember, this does not apply. How do I say this? This does not apply to other nations, but yet it does. Normally, when something's happening in one chart, it's not affecting the people that are represented in another chart. But in this case, since the United States seems to be taking a role of leadership, whatever happens in our chart is the chart for the world. When a CEO of a company, his chart's being hit or her chart's being hit, it affects the entire corporation. No doubt about it. So take and leave some of these things I'm going to say to you tonight, but I think you will find that this Pluto mood that is around us is definitely affecting the entire planet. This discussion is mainly meant for Americans undergoing the Pluto return. Now, the Pluto return, as I said, started in 2021, 22. It's going to go on for several more years. There's no way to ascertain the number of years. Probably, I would say 5 more years, at least, because it's a powerful planet. So I've noticed that I've got a bad habit. And I've noticed that the habit is I'll bring up a subject and I'll talk about the subject, and halfway through the show, I'm off the subject. So I'm now going to write down the topic on the top line and keep referring to it to keep myself on topic. And that topic today is how are we doing during our Pluto return? And it's got so many tentacles. There's so many ramifications to this that I want to make sure if I get caught, I'll draw myself back. Good evening, Miss Linda. Okay, now, when we talk about a planet's return, like the sun returning every year on your birthday, Mars returning every 2 years to your Mars on the Martian return. Jupiter returns every 12 years. They're all different. Saturn every 28 years. The Pluto return is a big deal. It's about 246 years. Something like that. So when it returns, it's not a picnic and it's not nasty either. It is a time of, what is the word? It's a time of uh, facing up.
Reckoning?
What?
Reckoning?
Yes, perfect. That perfect word. Thank you, Rick. At the time of reckoning. Now, a lot of people, and I want to say this clearly, and I want you to listen to me closely tonight. This is some important stuff. A lot of people get scared out of their mind about Pluto unnecessarily. There are parts of Pluto that should scare you. There are other parts that shouldn't. The main thing about Pluto is if you're goofing around, you should be scared. If you're goofing around with other people's emotions, you should be scared. If you're not carrying your weight, you should be scared. If you're not showing your courage in this world, being purposeful, you should be scared. If you're, however, doing the opposite, trying, this Pluto is powerful and it will back you up and source you and get behind you and bring books to you and people to you and lovers to you and jobs to you. It knows what it's doing because it is not out there. It's not out there. It's in here. So one way you could say Pluto's, I don't know if you could say these words, but Pluto's very much your soul. It's your deep, passionate soul. It's the part of you that's very much connected to the collective. I'm sure that other people think the soul comes about from different places. I don't really want to argue about it, but nevertheless, to say it's a deep, passionate part of you that really cares. And when you hear the story of the passion of Christ, that's the Pluto story. Okay? It has to do with life and rebirth, life and death, death and rebirth. So it's the reason in the last 10 years that you've seen so much corruption come to the surface. That's one of its jobs is to dig out the junk, to dig out the junk, dig out the junk, get it out, bring in fresh blood, fresh organs, fresh whatever. So Pluto has a lot to do with finding you in your hiding place. And it will find you in your hiding place because you will find you in your hiding place. It ain't it. You're finding because there's a part of you that can't stand it. There's a part of you that just can't stand to be hidden. And that's the it that finds you. Now, anyhow, did you have something, Rick?
Yeah, quickly, I'd say make sure that you're understanding that hiding is not you hiding from others, but you hiding from yourself.
Exactly.
That should be clearly
That's
stated.
very good. And it may look like you're hiding from others, but there is no such thing as others. It's all you. Okay. Now, when the Pluto has returned over the past, denial, Erica says yes. Um, some of these words I'm seeing on my screen because we who are here live are able to send chat messages to each other and we can see them. And if you're watching this the next day on YouTube, you can't see the messages. So if you want to be live with us, you can join us any Thursday night. by going to Astrology Unplugged. Just type that into Google, it'll show you the link. Any Thursday night now at 7 o'clock Eastern for about 90 minutes. And you can join us live. If not, you'll have to watch the replay on later on Thursday night. So, one of the reasons Pluto does this digging is it can't stand dishonesty. And it digs up all the falsity. And it's what's been behind one of the things. It's one of two things that have really been behind this tremendous fever within the country to dig up the swamp. Now, there's digging up the swamp, and then there's talking about you digging up the swamp, but not really digging up the swamp, and blaming the swamp on the other party. There's several different swamps. But Pluto really is about digging up the junk, the stuff in your life that doesn't work. You know how somebody is mealy-mouthed? They say something, but they don't really mean it. There's no heart in it. That's a very Plutonian thing. When somebody is half-hearted efforts, those are very Plutonian things because they're cowardly. Pluto, state your case, let's go. And I just always come back to Charles Bronson. I don't think I want to be in a gunfight with Charles Bronson. Where you want to talk about Scorpio energy, there are many, many good people that exemplify it. But Charles Bronson was really a really good example of pure Scorpio energy because he came to play. Okay. So for years and years, as far back as 05 and before, Liza and I wrote a lot of articles because remember, we saw all this coming. We saw all this coming 05, 06. We wrote about it. It's on my website. We saw the economy failing. We saw the government falling apart. We saw the Peter Principle falling apart. We saw the wars. We saw the just different types of collapse. And one of the reasons for that, this was not just Pluto we were talking about. We were talking about Pluto going through the sign of Capricorn. And as Pluto was spending 13, 14, 15 years in the sign of Capricorn, it will affect all things that are ruled by Capricorn. In astrology, you'll find as the more you study, things ruled by Capricorn are institutions, governments, schools, etc. Things ruled by Mars are war and your head. Things ruled by Jupiter are travel. So these planets have rulership over many different parts of our life. So as Pluto traveled through Capricorn all those years, since January of 08, when this started, it's ending now. It's ending next year. Then it will go into Aquarius and it will start affecting things in the society that are Aquarian, such as groups, such as idealism, such as groups that come together for common goals, such as revolution, many, many things, idealism. But since 08, what you've been seeing all the downfall, all the discovery of all of the illusions, of all of the corruption, etc. And what have you seen? What have you seen in the schools with the people shooting each other? I mean, in the Netherlands, they might have 2 guns in the whole country, and we got like 7 in each house. That's because our new people tonight are with us from the Netherlands. Hey, Willem and Kane, don't ask us why we got them. We don't know why. It's a madness. It's a madness. Everybody's got their gun. Don't ask us why, and don't try to take them away from anybody. We know all about the school shootings and the parade shootings and all this and that. We're just as dismayed as everybody else. I wish I could say to you that we're working on the problem. Some people are, and we're trying to improve it because it's really nasty when you see your little kids that are afraid to go to school. It's very sad. One thing I do want to tell you if you're new to the show, I'm not messing around anymore. I'm going to speak my truth. Hope you speak your truth. I'm not going to be too radical, but I'm going to speak the truth because there's so much BS out there. And that's one of the things that Pluto and Eris together right now are trying to improve. So, what Pluto has done in the past several years, it has uncovered a lot of our corruption. And you have seen the plaque on the side of the Statue of Liberty become rather meaningless. You have seen the US and what we thought we were become pretty meaningless. You've seen us turn away people trying to come to us for safety, being turned away. You've seen a whole new change with the perception of the United States. And I don't care where you are, this has got to be pretty scary because this is, in a lot of ways, the top country in the world. It can be scary if you're sitting there saying, if this can happen to them, what's going to happen to us? Well, whatever the point is. But the main thing is this. When the Pluto returned to Pluto and it hit the sun around the same time, our country is going through a massive identity crisis. And you're seeing it everywhere here. You're seeing everywhere people saying, you're not the country that you thought you were. People battling and getting accused of that and saying, oh, don't tell us this. We've always been a great country. There's a lot of people BSing themselves. A lot of people sticking their head in the sand. A lot of people that don't want to hear the truth. And likewise, on this show and others, there are a lot of people that are facing the facts now. There are a lot of people that they're conceding, and they say what our country did to the slaves, what our country did to the black folks, what our country did to poor people, what our country did to the Italian immigrants, the Irish immigrants. We see misuse of people all throughout. So part of the Pluto return is change your ways or deal with the aftermath. It's that simple. Change your ways or deal with the aftermath. Change your ways means, and with almost all these planets, it's the same thing. Put your cards on the table, be honest, be straightforward with your neighbors, with your other countries, be straightforward and be honest. We all know that that's the only way we're going to dig out from under this junk that we have put ourselves in. And we all can see many factions that are still trying to BS their way through. They're trying to lie their way through with their candidates. They're trying to lie and cheat their way through the elections. They're trying to hide their money in a hole somewhere that we can't get to it. Well, as we all know deep inside, that's your Pluto. We know what will work and what won't work. We know what will work and we know what won't work. Now, tonight's question is, how are we doing with our Pluto return? Well, in a lot of ways, we're not doing very good. We're still seeing a lot of crime. We're still seeing a lot of lack in our schools. We're seeing lack within our medical industry. We're seeing imprisonment to new record numbers. We're seeing drug problems and on and on and on and on and on. Okay, so we ask ourselves, since most of our institutions have crumbled, we're going to run to the Red Cross. We're going to run to Department of Justice. We're going to run to the Justice, the Supreme Court. Things have become very unsteady. You don't know what you can depend on anymore. And in the 50s, in the deluded 50s, and the deluded 60s, we had our Supreme Court, we had our president, and we ran to Washington, and James, whatever movie that was, Jimmy Stewart, fought for us and fought and fought and fought until we got the just rulings that we needed. Well, we have seen in the past several years that's not how things are anymore. They just aren't. There aren't that many things that we can depend on. And what we have learned is that we've got to depend on each other. I think we're learning that. And because of that, there's another side to this Pluto return that is marvelous. It's called us coming to the surface. It's called grassroots campaigns. It's called us becoming authors, us writing books, us becoming more willing to watch those movies and to read those books. So there's a maturation going on in the US and around the world, which is called facing the facts. And part of facing the facts is going to be somehow getting the big money out of the hands of the people with the big money and get it shared with everybody else. So I see it. I don't think it's going to be a simple trick. But when you ask, how are we doing with our Pluto return? That's largely what's happening. Because I talked about a few weeks ago, a Pluto return is like this. I'm trying to give you examples. I'm this filthy rich millionaire, and I got all this money, and I'm gonna go on a long trip for 246 years. So I'm saying goodbye to my family. Just put up with the numbers here. But for 246 years, I'm gonna hit you with so much money and ask you to do the best that you can, and I'm gonna come back in 246 years and see how well you have done. And that's what Pluto did between 1776, and it gave us a very rich natal chart. Sun, Jupiter, Venus. Rich indeed. The rich green lands, the open pastures. And I'm going to come back 246 years later and see how well you've done with your investments. All the money I gave you. How well did you do? And Pluto only really asks one or two questions. It asks, have you abused your power or have you used your power correctly? Have you as a country used your power to your best ability? Or have you used it to screw others and take advantages for yourself? I don't have to ask that question too clearly because I think a lot of us know the answer. So we have seen through some rather dismal astrology on plugs, we've had several dismal ones in the last 5 or 6 months because it is very sobering. It's not all a picnic, but we've seen some tough stuff that we've had to face. We've also seen some very nice things come about by the appearance of some very nice people now tonight representing the Netherlands, which is just wonderful, combining with us American ones. Um, and we got them coming in from Germany and from England and all over the world. So the point is, what are we going to do? First of all, is there an institution that we can get behind that's going to help? We had Obama. Say what you want to say. He was a rather positive force trying to rebuild the country. In a lot of ways, Biden is too. I'm not going to talk about Trump. Not at all. So, when we ask ourselves, how are we doing with our Pluto return? Well, the number one thing is how are you dealing with it inside? I've told you many times that when Liza, we do a lot of readings, and when we read for people undergoing Pluto turns, Pluto transits, Pluto going over certain things. It's a heavy time, and one of the most common things that we find with these Pluto people is that they're downstairs in their basement throwing junk out. Literally. Why are they downstairs with boxes and hoses and brooms? And I talk to them and they're shocked and they think it's crazy that I'm mind reading them, but I'm not. Why are they throwing out the junk? They let the junk pile up for 37 years. Why are they throwing it out now? Anybody care to guess at that answer? I'm talking about people who are undergoing very massive Pluto change. And when I interview them, they tell me one of the first things that they're doing is throwing out junk from their basement. Why is that?
Well, in some way, they're getting the nudge, no?
Oh, so explain to me the nudge.
Well, I'm trying to, in speaking to generalizations, some feeling that something, and they're being led to, hey, I can no longer stand all these boxes and all these bags and all this clutter, and somehow focusing on an external aspect of what is also or may primarily be going on internally for them. They're getting the nudge, they're getting a push, whether it's now it's too much or something is overflowing, they're getting the nudge.
This is excellent, Sigmund. Just excellent. You're saying it exactly right. You could use two, three different words on it. They're all the same thing. They're getting a nudge from inside. And what the nudge inside is doing, from my experimentation, it is opening the heart and it's saying, my God, it's really dark in there and I can't stand it. And it got dark and it got dirty. Let's get this cleaned out. For years there, Liza and I used to go on KDKA radio years ago. Very nice program. And they would take callers, and a lot of the female callers would call us with questions like, and it's so common, when am I going to move? Am I going to get a better house? Do you see me adding on a room to the house? And what happened and what we realized there is exactly what Sigmund is saying. When you talk about the house, you're talking about your heart. This is your nest. And I said to people, all you people that are getting ready to ask me a question about your house, please substitute the word heart. And they all went, because a lot of people are not happy what's happening in their heart or in their family's heart, and they've accumulated what you might call dirt, what you might call a lack of love flowing. And so you're right, people get to this point where they don't care anymore. It's gotten so dirty, like in a mine, they just got to get it out. And I talked to a woman today, and she said, boy, in those old days, they always asked you, who's my best match? Who's my best match? What sign? And I told her, that used to be the question. And the question anymore is not that. The question now is, can you identify your junk and get rid of it? It's the same as sweeping out the basement. It's the same thing. Okay? And when you are throwing out the junk, you are clearing off the aircraft carrier so the airplanes can land. You're clearing the field so the airplanes can land. You're clearing your heart so that you can now go on your life with an honest rapport with other people instead of BSing or hiding or just saying the words that you think you need to say to get by. It's dumping your stuff. It's exactly what Sigmund is saying. And Pluto, similar to Eris, Pluto is a part of you that wants to be pure. Just does. My son he's got a lot of Scorpio in his chart. He used to play a lot with Lego blocks, and he would build a pyramid out of Lego blocks. And inside, they were all yellow. And inside, I would tell him, Taylor, inside the pyramid, nobody can see. You can hide a black one and a green one in there. Put yellow ones all around. Oh, no, 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 Dad. No, no, he's Pluto and Scorpio generation. They had to all be yellow. They had to all be facing the right way. And they had to all be Lego and not tandem. So when he picked that up, sucker was pure. Now that portrays a little bit of how Scorpio can be a little over dedicated also, but it shows their beauty and their purity. So if you're living in a relationship where there's a lot of falsity going, where there's a lot of hiding and there's a lot of lying going on, it's very likely that there's a Pluto active in your chart or your mate's chart, and you really need to get it fixed. You really need to get it out or fix it because Pluto is very dangerous. It's just as dangerous. Pluto is the part of you that wants to live purely with God. And when you hear all the beautiful songs or the beautiful mantras or the beautiful chants, and you feel the heavenly music come through you, that's a Pluto part of you. That's the bells being rung that have been cleaned, the bells that are rung that have been shined, and they have that extraordinary sound. So that's what we need to do to answer this question. And the number one way we start by purifying ourselves, and then we start to try to volunteer for groups where I can help people pick themselves up by the bootstraps, help the group out. But the number one issue is to purify ourselves. And I was asking myself, what's that mean? That means meditating more, doing breathing exercises, swimming, yoga, exercising, making yourself stronger, hanging out with people who are more pure, as opposed to ones who are jiving you, hanging out with people that have a pure intention. Those are the starts in the beginning, and I'll bet you anything I'll bet you anything that this group has gone through a tremendous change in the past year in terms of the people we hang out with. I'll bet you. Because we just can't take it anymore. We just can't take it. It's hard enough when I got a group of pure people around me. It's hard enough even then. So let's hear from you. Let's hear from your thoughts. What does it mean to you? Rick, go ahead.
I'm going to be leaving early for another Zoom, and I want to share
That's
this
right.
thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
In the interest of looking at Pluto, I like how you express it as the heart. Another way to think of it is the energy of the soul. It is that part of us where, as Pluto can be connected with the angel of death, it is the companion that meets our soul at its purest form. So we can also look at institutions of government, in the public arena. How many of us have had more conversations to encourage the thinking of social justice and activism is another way we are found doing what we need to for the sake of Pluto's return, because that puts us in alignment. Putting our head in the sand would be trying to resist.
Right. Well, that's very, very good. Thank you. I want to take the time to ask a question. I thought that was excellent. I'm going to ask a question, my friend Linda, and I know Linda, she can handle. I put her, matter of fact, all of you. I'm going to put you all on the spot sooner or later. It just happens on this show, but but it's because I love y'all. But Linda is really good at being put on the spot because she's very smart. She's an English professor. And the reason I want to ask this question to her, about 20 years ago, something like that, I worked with her very closely, and she was going through a very bad time. Okay, whatever it was. I'm going to let you speak your piece. But she was overly Librand and overly Scorpion. She had too much Libra and too much Scorpion in her chart. And what that basically indicates is that you're probably getting too much emphasis, giving too much emphasis on whether this relationship will last and whether this relationship will last. Nothing else has any value, just how these relationships are working. And so I told her that I had a sense about her that she could start to dump some of these relationships and she would probably start to find higher quality ones. She would start to find ones that were not codependent. So I want to hear from her about her going in her basement, her digging out her Pluto dirt, and what happened. Do you mind?
Oh, not at all. Not at all. I mean, I think that's, it was, it was a kind of a, I mean, we sort of started this work maybe 20 years ago, but it really got high intensity, like 13 and a half, somewhere in there. Like, it was like, or 10 and a half years ago, it was like 2013, where I finally got it. I mean, that what we had been doing that like gelled with me. And part of it was like just working with the chart and noticing that Uranus was over here and it was in a powerful place, and that I had a bucket handle to Jupiter, and that meant something. And there was Mars up there with Venus and so on. So I started to have a more balanced vision of myself. But during that period 10 years ago, Pluto was all over me. It was like sitting on, I can't remember what it was sitting on, but it was sitting on something big. And it was like a year or two where I had to just change everything. I got out from under a marriage, then I got out from under the relationship I jumped into right after that, and just decided I'm going to live by myself. I'm going to live by myself with my cats, and I am not going to date. I am not going to date. And it just was the best thing that ever happened to me. I mean, it just, I just put so much more energy into other things and myself. And growth and change. And we were just talking about, I was just talking about this with someone yesterday about when I look at my life now. I'm not dating anybody. I mean, if some person like knocked on the door and said, "Do you want to go to the movie?" and I like that person, I would go out, and then maybe not again, or maybe again if it was good and if it was fine. But all my relationships right now are really healthy. The people I hang with at work, um, all my basketball people, I have a really good relationship with them, and they're appropriately tiered. Like, I mean, all of the assistant coaches but one I've taught were my students now. And so I'm still their teacher. So there's still this thing where I'm up here and sort of slightly over here and they're down here. And it's good. It's just good structurally. I pay attention to what my connections are with people and how to improve them and what impact they're having on me. And do I like that? And does it feel good? And what impact am I having on them? And, I just, I, first of all, I just think that chart and understanding how it works together and how to not overemphasize things, especially those, seven.
Another thing that I must add here, thinking of my own life, and I've gone through 2 large Pluto periods. There comes a time when you say to yourself, sweeping changes are in order.
Well, and
That's
right
no-
now I'm in the middle of another one of
that's
those.
no coincidence with the sweeping in the broom either. Sweeping, whether it's a nation that says it, a city hall, a state, a family, sweeping changes are in order.
Well,
And
we just took,
one second, please. If you deny that, you're asking for trouble.
we just took
And
2 carloads of stuff out of here.
if you start to listen to it and try to solve it, where people get scared is they think they got to solve it all overnight. You don't have to. You just need to try. Pluto is very compassionate and it will help you, but you got to make an effort. Now, I want to hear thank you so much, Linda. That's such a wonderful
I just want to add one thing. Remember
Yeah.
that from our perspective, Pluto has a heart on it.
Yeah,
It has a heart on it.
yes, it does.
And so it's showing us love from outer space. And we have to
Yeah.
remember that, but it's like any other kind of love. If we don't embrace what it has to offer, it's not going to give us anything.
And the question I have is why is Venus traveling upside down?
Ask Rick.
179
Claudia.
degrees, 179 degrees tilted. Of all the planets, I would not expect Venus to be upside down. Okay, now I'm going to pick on Claudia because Claudia has gone through several Plutonian revolutions. What I'm listening for is dumping the stuff.
Yeah. And what I find is that it keeps the stuff that's real in your life, that's really real for you, that's integrity with your own self, with your heart. My Pluto square to my Venus, my Saturn. Now I'm having an opposition to my Mercury, all in Cancer. God, it's kind of been what I call the making of the real me. Not the making, but the cleaning out of so I could surface. And it was really painful because I was so resistant. This was, 12, 13 years ago. But it was when my life really started, when I really started to live my life, really. And I luckily, thank God, I've always been a little, like this, the way I am. In other words, I knew, well, this is no accident. I don't know what's happening here, but I wasn't deeply into astrology then. I knew sun signs, but that was it. I just thought, whatever's happening here, it's going to be much better for me. This is going to be, I got a divorce. I had to sell my house. I had to literally, people would walk into my house and go, "Oh, are you moving?" No, I literally just got rid of everything that what didn't mean anything to me. And it was just, I was holding on to stuff. Uh, but it gave me such personal power that I didn't know I had. I mean, I really, truly had no idea. I guess I did have an idea, but I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to admit that. Have you ever heard that expression? We're afraid of our own, I don't know if it's success or our own wonder, like,
Power.
yeah. And in my heart of hearts, I knew that this wasn't right for me, and I wasn't going to be, it was a bad situation, with, a lot of, a lack of respect. And I don't like that.
That's, that's the number one thing for Leos.
Yeah, my daughter actually said to me, I know, respect. This was just last night. Um, long story short, I was talking to a Libra girlfriend today, and it made me kind of resonate with what Linda was saying. She's a Libra, and this is what I find so cool. So Pluto's gone squared her sun technically some years ago, because she's probably like a 10 or 12 degrees Libra. But even in the little time I've known her, which I've only known her close to 3 years, I've seen this change in her. Her dog died. She's getting rid of all the shit in her house, excuse my language. She was all things to all people. Oh, Miss Social, and I want to do this, and I want to do this for you, and I want to do this. Yes, she's quit doing that. And she goes, "Claudia, I just am so happy that I feel like I'm being true to myself now in a way that I never was." And that's a Pluto transit. So think about it. I mean, I look at the degrees, the orb. Pluto's at 28, 29 degrees right now, and it's still working through her life. It's so powerful. It's just so powerful. And I always encourage people, don't be scared of it. Don't be scared of it. There's nothing to be afraid of, unless you've been a real word I can't say.
The trouble with Pluto is if you're not using it right, people pick up on it and they start abusing you by using it against you.
Mm-hmm.
You won't throw me out because I know you're too softy.
That's happened to me.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the big one.
Oh yeah.
And the
Mm-hmm.
big one is when you see somebody say, "Oh yeah, goodbye,"
Uh-huh.
and then everything comes up roses.
Yeah.
It's
It's
just unbelievable.
incredibly
Um,
just the force, just the
I follow these murder cases a lot, and I look for things in common astrologically. And I've told Liza one of the main things that makes people commit murder is when you have dumped them off your list.
mm-hmm.
Taking you out of my will. I stopped giving you money.
Yeah.
I mean, almost like the next day. That's a very common one
Wow.
because during that day, they have to face how bad they messed up. It's
Mm-hmm.
such a painful thing for them to even look at how bad that they messed up, that it can backfire. I
Definitely.
had two major Pluto times in my life where everything went crash, boom, bang. And each time I kind of lost everything. Just lost everything. And
Mm-hmm.
on both periods, I rebounded with wonderful people, wonderful books, wonderful opportunities, wonderful new jobs, new cars, new places to live,
Yeah.
new girlfriends.
Mm-hmm.
it will come your way when you let go of it. But your warning light, without a doubt, is when you're hanging on to something and you got fear in your fingers and you're grasping onto it and you're lying to yourself. I can't live without that thing.
Right,
And when
right.
you let go of that thing is when it happens.
Well, kind of like what you say as well. If you are doing that, what happens is it starts to remove, oh, well, let me get rid of this in your life so you can't hang on. So you don't have the crutches that you
Right?
hold on to. And so you kind of have no choice, but you have to stand on your own eventually. Um, and if you the quicker you kind of get that, the better. But it is incredibly powerful, and I'm grateful. I had my first square when I was a child, when I was 5 to 10 years old, and that was a horrible time as well. Different when you're a kid, it's different. But I did think today, just right before the show, I started to think, so how are the cardinal signs feeling right about now? Because you've been through so much.
Oh, we've
Uh,
been through hell for a long time.
yeah,
And I
yeah,
want to ask you this going question here. How are we doing with our Pluto return?
yeah.
What can we do collectively or individually to show respect to this, what we've been talking about, dumping the junk? One of the big things I've found with dumping the junk is this. Oh, I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings. That's a
Mhm.
real big one. That's a real hard one, and you can't answer that question for everybody because it's very karmic between you and that person. But in a lot of ways, you holding on to that person is not helping them, and it isn't helping you. And,
No,
and letting go is the answer, and it will almost always work.
I think so.
So, what has the U.S. been doing all these years that's caused us to see so much corruption? What is it that we can let go of as Americans, as individuals, to help this?
I think part of it is probably already happening. We don't have this uh putting the government on a pedestal. We're taking it we look at the government in a completely different, all government, the CDC, the legislate, everything is not, I guess what you said, like in the 50s. It was like, oh, just a whole different, almost innocent way of looking at
Yeah.
the government.
Jimmy Stewart goes to Congress and
Yeah.
talks for 3 days. Yeah.
So now people are
Yeah, that's true.
doing things on their own. And it could be just, I'm just going to grow my own vegetables from now on because I don't trust what's at the grocery store, or just because you want to. But I do find more and more there are a lot of people uh, that are they're showing other people, hey, if you want to, I don't know, start your business, let me show you how to do this. If you want to know how to cook for a big family, if you want to, in other words, we don't rely on institutions.
Right. What are you? I'm curious, Kane. Hey, Kane, way over there in the Netherlands. I'm curious as to whether you're feeling similar energy changes in your country. Can you hear me, Kane? You're you're unmuted. Go ahead. No, I think you got to take the headphones off. You got to take the headphones off. I think that's what the problem is. Just unplug them. Yeah, there you go.
Hi, perfect.
Yeah. So are you feeling similar energies amongst your people?
Hmm. I do see that it seems like tension has risen with people. Everybody's gotten a shorter fuse, you know. Personally, felt like I've been through a bit of purification.
What describe your purification, if you would.
Well, to stay along the terms, I've been throwing out the junk.
Throwing it out the junk. Very good. And what has the result been?
I think it isn't so much physical junk. It was more like things I might have clung on to a little bit too much. And it took time, but it seems like it's the right time. I didn't really have to do it at all. The time has come and it kind of just happened.
I see. That makes a lot of sense. Very good. What about you, Willem? Can you answer the question how these theories have been felt by you and those around you of wanting to get rid of your junk?
Yeah, we trying to set up something new, you know? Going through a bit of a rebirth.
So, what do you Europeans think of America?
Well, we only see what we see in the news or
Online.
what we see online, you know. Sometimes, well, we have a bunch of Americans that come through here, you know. This is a city where you can smoke marijuana, so there's loads of tourism here.
Yeah.
And when they come here, they're nice people. My mentor, who kind of got me onto this stuff, he's from Pennsylvania, U.S. I've got a bunch of family in New York and a couple in, I think, Miami. So it's just like any other place, I would say, of course, but you have your own troubles, like we have ours.
So it's happening the same everywhere. What's on your mind, Teresa? I know you got lots of thoughts.
I do. Too many to say on this program, but yeah, I've been having to face a lot of my junk, fears. And what I'm realizing now is that we have a lot of personal power. I'm beginning to feel my own power. And I'm beginning not to look outside of myself. I'm looking it's all about me. I think you all have heard me say that before. It's all about me. In other words, I create everything. I create the world around me. I create what's happening everywhere. It's my world and I created it. So to answer your question, well, what's the answer to fix the world? It's to fix myself and to not fix anybody else out there. It's just to fix me because that's my only responsibility. And when I fix me first, then the world changes, even if it's a little bit. So that's what I'm thinking.
Oh, that's
what I've been thinking these days, and probably the last couple years, with the books that I've been reading and this program and some other Zooms that I do, as Rick knows. So, you know, we have to see the divine in everything. I'm beginning to look at the divine in everybody and everything. And sometimes that's not so easy. I put up a lot of resistance, especially in the way of politics. And you all know probably who I mean by that.
Yes.
But it really works. If we drop the resistance and we say, okay, I want to do this. I want to see this person is different. I want to see something good. Even if you have to make it up, there has to be something good. Because if we just look at the world as a place that just has junk, and it does, we all have our junk, but I want to start looking at and see the good stuff that's out there. You know, all the people that are helping everybody else, you know, the small good deeds that happen every day by every person, even the people we don't like that are out there.
Well, I think that wins the award for the number one response for 2024 so far. Thank you very much. I'm very anxious to hear from San Francisco now, how they're doing out there on Haight-Ashbury Street.
Well, I haven't been to Haight-Ashbury in a while because it's changed so much from the original Haight-Ashbury, which was very aspirational and hopeful. And then, you know, the ugly reality came in, you know, Manson and all that stuff. And I just feel like we all create this virtual reality in our minds of what we think the world is all about. And that screen has been cracking and the reality of it has been coming through and the pieces have been falling apart of the screen. And it's like, oh, okay, that dream was just a dream and that wasn't reality. And this is no longer happening. And oh boy, you know, the kids aren't going to be able to see that anymore because the world is polluted and changing. And so you realize, what are you going to do about it? But at the same time, like everyone's been saying, we realize, okay, we can't depend on all these authority figures that we looked up to, like our doctor, tell me what to do. And then the doctor gives you 15 minutes. Instead, you study yourself, your own health, and you tell the doctor, I'm my own expert on myself. How can you help me? And then you decide yes or no, whether the doctor is right. And there are like about 10 million doctors anyway. And so you decide, you take responsibility. It's about taking responsibility for power and not giving your power away. And it's scary, but at least it's real. You know, and you don't have to rely on your toys and on your things that were part of that virtual future that you thought you were going to have anymore. And that does scare you at first. And you go, well, what the hell am I going to hang on to here? And then you realize there's nothing to hang on to. Every day is a new day. Every minute is a new minute. And you have to, I mean, you still plan for the future. You don't like blow all your money and just go traveling around the world and say, ah, the hell with what's going to happen tomorrow. No, I mean, your common sense. Is that what you did, Therese? No, you use your common sense and the rest will come, and you ally yourself with other people who also make sense. And the ones that don't listen to them and don't feel it's your responsibility to fix them. And it's a whole new world, you know, it's scary. It's not what we were hoping it would be, but it is what it is, right? And that's all that it is. as Werner Erhard says, you know, we're so afraid. Oh, this is happening. But that's all it is. It's not more or less than that. My finger isn't going to fall off. I just cut it and it will heal. You know, don't make a big deal out of it.
Well, thank you very much. That was very elegant. Thank you, Erica. We
You're
need
welcome.
we need to hear from Renate and Susan. Whoever would like to unmute yourself, you can feel free to go ahead and start talking about your opinion.
Okay. I hope I can speak because I'm still lounging.
You sound fine.
You hear me?
You sound fine.
What?
You
Okay,
sound
good.
fine.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm still lounging a solid flu, but it's a kind of cleaning process in me going on since the end of the year. And I'm up to making decisions, having Pluto opposition still, Pluto Venus, and now Uranus Moon. And up came in me to change my location. I'm living here with 5 other people in the house and for quite a while, and there will be quite some changes I'm not going with. and yeah, and I was thinking about having a real home. And as Uranus is, I'm very impulsive when, so I applied for an apartment in a house I have been living before I went to Mexico. And taking over my power, because I want the people in the house all to be happy and fine, and that is impossible. And I see that I give my power away all the time because I'm people pleasing. But I'm thinking differently, and I don't like myself doing that. And yeah, I just have to stop that, and I have to end this, that I'm laying down and feeling sick and cannot run away from what's going on. I just facing the music. That's what I'm doing. And political situations here in Canada, I think it's the same like in America. Little groups are popping up. My friends, they are doing good stuff in their groups. They start doing their own, what did she say, gardening. And I think it's going on everywhere. And where I will go, I have a possibility to get a little piece of soil or whatever to do my own little gardening there. I don't know if it will work. I give it up to the Holy Spirit and said, okay, whatever happens, it's supposed to happen for me will happen. I did the steps and it's out of my control. Yeah, that's what's going on personal, trying to get into my power and slowly get off this people pleasing and thinking I have to make other people happy. And I really see how it works against me when I'm doing that, because this is a house full of Pluto people, you know, and they sense what's going on, you know. So as well as I sense what's going on with them, they sense what, especially my landlady, she has 4 planets in Scorpio and she is sending that. And she is picking on me, you know, and I see, yeah, for me, I decided I'm looking into 5 different parts of me I don't want to see forever. Because I'm well aware that all these people in the house, they are all a part of myself, showing me the mirror, you know. But it's going to be too much now for me. So change and see what happens.
Well, that sounds tremendous. Really good luck to you. That sounds really, really good, Renate.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Bye.
Yes, very good story. This whole story is just filtering down through everybody. Let's hear it from our mad artist in South Carolina.
Yeah, Pluto is currently sitting on top of my natal Eris and opposing my natal Jupiter and Uranus.
Oh,
So I don't know what the heck that means, but the last time Pluto had several serious aspects would be about 23 years ago when it went over my moon and went over my sun and opposed my moon 6 months later. So at that time, that was a major upheaval. So I'm waiting to see what's going to happen with this one. But I'm not very patient or good at sitting and waiting. And so I tend to, I was that kid that would play for hours with a rubber band. So, I mean, I tend to get into things by myself, given half a chance. So I've been reinventing my art and reinventing what I'm doing with it and designing and redesigning and tailoring my website. And I don't know if any of that is going to lead anywhere or not. But, for all I know, it's like a tree falls in the forest. But if nobody is standing there, did it really happen? I don't know. But I'm trying. And meanwhile, I'm having fun doing it all.
well,
So
I'd like to offer you something since you did say Pluto is now opposite your Jupiter.
Jupiter and Uranus, those two are
All right,
conjunct.
it's opposite Jupiter and Uranus, but
Yeah.
it's opposite Jupiter.
Yeah,
And Jupiter's your ruling planet.
true.
So let's picture for a while that your ruler, you have let's picture you have a person in your life that's your ruler. You can even call them Jupiter if you want. And they
Mhm.
come around, they rule you, and they go do things, they come back, and they have different experiences, then they come back and they have a big impact on you. Well, what do you think would happen if your ruler has spent a few months or a few years with Pluto? That's what's happening to you.
Okay.
Your natal Jupiter, which wants to expand and it wants to explore, and it's rather lighthearted, and it wants to encompass everything. When it gets Plutoized, it
Okay.
becomes more intense. It becomes more solid. It wants to be more meaningful. So you can blend those two together.
Okay.
One of the most common things when Pluto hits somebody is they feel they want to do something of more importance.
I've kind of been feeling that way my whole life, though. So,
Now, we'll blend it all together. Blend it all together. But what I'm seeing here at 22 minutes after the hour, I'm seeing every single person sitting here tonight is reporting something similar. And I think it's really good. And to get back to thank you, Susan, to get back to our question of how have we been doing with the Pluto transit? And the people I asked kind of went like this. But I think I think that Teresa gave us the answer. She gave us the answer. And you can argue if you want to, but it is the answer. It's up to us and how we deal with our own Pluto inside. And you can see this growing in her. You can see it growing in Claudia. You can see it growing in most of the people sitting here. And that's really a wonderful thing. And if we just got to keep spreading that message amongst our other messages. And, I think we're on our way. This makes me more hopeful tonight to hear this, because I see an awful lot of people that I imagine soon are going to be on the back of their pickup trucks with their shotguns. And I'm hoping that they don't do it. And I'm hoping that they start listening to their own Pluto and their own truth and start getting past their own junk. So we're in for an election year, and let's just keep our fingers crossed and let's put the faith forward that we can help other people pick up this faith in themselves. Okay? See, Teresa started all this, and we're going to end it right there. We'll see you next week. I don't know what it'll be about, but we'll find out when it happens. And thank you all for a very intriguing evening. This will be on YouTube in a couple hours. Thanks to our guests, Willem and Kane. Please come back and join us again. Good night,
Thanks, Rick.
everybody.
Thanks, Rick.
everybody.
Good night,
See you
everybody.
next week, Rick.
Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Good
Take
night,
care.
everybody.